Welcome back to another week of devotionals, and we're going to be speaking about authority. I think this really connects with what's like the political climate of what's going on. You hear a lot of people, kind of speak bad about what's going on and blaming the head honcho, or vice versa. He can do no wrong, and everything he does is amazing. So obviously those are extremes. And so we're going to be talking about honoring authority. So here's something that you need to remember. And we're going to be repeating this line over and over, all right? The line is, when it comes to authority, it's not about them, it's about the Lord. So remember that. As we go through these lessons, we're going to be going back to that line. So we're going to we're going to do a quick background. I think one of the best examples of honoring authority is King David. Now, when we think about a king back in the day, they had absolute power. They could do no wrong. They could kill anyone. They could wake up and be like, you know what, I'm in a bad mood, and it was that guy's fault because he spilled my cereal, and he's just done. He was out. Or anything, just little things like that. You probably read through history. There were some very temperamental historical figures who did some insane things, but that's because they had absolute authority. They had all the power, so they kind of did whatever they want. Now, how does that relate to you? Well, right now you are probably in school. You're starting school, so that means you're going to be dealing with a lot of different teachers. That's a lot of different authorities in your life. If you're in sports, you're going to have a coach. If you're into any sort of club or social activity, you're going to have like the person that's in charge of that club. And so in your life, you have a lot of people that are kind of like your authority figures, and some of them are great, and some of them are, as you may well know, they're not the best at their job, or they're not very good at their position. We're going to be focusing on those people that are authorities in your life, but they're not very good at it. So one of the things that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we choose who we respect, right? Now, they may be an authority figure, but that doesn't mean you respect them. That doesn't mean you've given them that voice over your life. So what are the things that need to happen for you to be able to not only hear their advice or hear what they're speaking to you, but also respect them? So if we go back into King David's life, we could see that the little background was, he was chosen to be king. He was anointed. This is after the Lord's favor shifted from King Saul over to David. He was anointed, but he wasn't king right away. There was a transition period. He had to wait. He had to serve under King Saul, meaning that he had to do the things that King Saul asked. And if we read through the word, we see that David became insta-famous, right? People really loved him, and they started singing his praises. They literally sang songs saying, King Saul killed 1,000. King David killed 10,000, right? So saying he was like 10 times better than King Saul. So obviously when King Saul hears this, he's very disturbed by it. He knows like, oh, there's something going on. David is anointed, and this may be the one person that's going to take my place. So if we go to 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 10, and it says, the very next day, a tormenting spirit from God overwhelmed Saul, and he began to rave in his house like a madman. And if we keep reading, it says, David was playing the harp as he did each day, but Saul had a spear in his hand, and we're in 11, and he suddenly hurled it at David, intending to pin him to the wall, but David escaped twice. So one of the things that we read in the Bible is that King Saul started to just go crazy. He started to do things that were kind of irrational, like David was one of his best warriors, one of his best right-hand man maybe, and he started pushing him, started pursuing him, and David ended up getting away. So how does that relate to you? We need to decide, how are we going to choose, how are we going to respect our authorities? So we need to understand that they are in charge, that they're the ones laying down the law. So how do we respond when someone with one of those authority figures is doing something wrong? And it's up to you. Are we going to attack them? Are we going to be confrontational, as in like they ask you to do something, you're like, no, I'm not going to do it, blah, blah. So you're just being annoying, and one, you don't respect them, so you're just not going to listen to anything. Or are you just going to ignore it? Or someone asks, a teacher or a coach asks you to do something and you're just like, I'm not gonna do it. You have to think about that. How are you responding to authority? David served under King Saul during that period of time. He trusted the Lord, knowing, okay, I need to be here and I'm going to respect King Saul. When we look at ourselves, like, what are some of the excuses that we use in order to justify these terrible actions sometimes that we do, as in we become confrontational or we ignore, even with our parents? You know, what are the excuses we're using on ourselves? Like, okay, it's okay for me to not honor authority because they're doing something wrong or they're not understanding me. We need to be more Christ-like and see, like, okay, we need to go back to that sentence we said in the beginning. When it comes to authority, it's not about them, it's about the Lord. So honoring authority, you're not just honoring your parents, you're not just honoring your teacher or coach, you're honoring the Lord, and that's something that will bring fruit, that will bring blessing. So for a challenge, how does the Lord want you to change your attitude, your character towards the bad authority figures in your life? What are the things you need to do in order for that relationship to be better? How can you honor the Lord in those situations? How can you honor the Lord honoring those bad authority figures? So I will see you next time.